So as Erin mentioned, I'm Amelia and I'm one of the Monitor product designers. I work alongside Nadia and Matt on the two Monitor teams, which are APM and Health. And today I want to walk through the updates we made to error tracking in GitLab over the past couple of milestones. And this work in particular was done by the Health team. And we worked closely with Sarah Waldner, who's the product manager for that team, to do what you're going to see. In order to set the context a little bit, just wanted to talk a little bit about why error tracking is important. If something is broken on your application, developers or support engineers or SREs will need a way of digging into what's going wrong so they can restore service quickly. But also for proactively, like every time you push your code, if you see that a bunch of errors are popping up, you can look into them to see if they're expected or not and dig into them as needed. So that's a little bit about how error tracking is used and why it might be important. Error tracking is relatively new in GitLab. A year ago, we didn't have any error tracking of any kind. But last December, the Monitor team gathered together in real life, which is shocking for GitLab, I know. But we did a number of facilitated design exercises together and built a simple version of error tracking in just a couple of days. And I've added the obligatory team working with Post-its picture in to prove that we were all there, and it really happened. The MVC, which you can see here, was very simple. It was an integration with Sentry, which is an existing error tracking tool, and it relies on the Sentry API to populate a basic list view within GitLab. So it linked existing Sentry instances to GitLab and listed the Sentry errors in GitLab. But in order to get any additional information about those errors or to act on them at all, you had to go back to Sentry. So we provided a link back to Sentry to investigate further. So you'll notice that this is a read-only list of errors and that users would need to go back to Sentry to do anything remotely useful with this list. For instance, to see more details about the errors, to create an issue from the errors, to assign someone to investigate the errors, essentially to do any of the other wonderful things we could do with GitLab with the errors. So while they could view the errors within GitLab, they would need to go to Sentry to investigate or to take action. There's pros and cons to this, what we were able to release. Obviously, the pro is that we got everything out in the world. We went from no error tracking to very minimal error tracking. But the con is obviously that users couldn't actually do much of anything with the MVC. This is something we obviously wanted to remedy as quickly as possible. But in Monitor, we're working on a number of separate product features. So often what happens is we work on something, we get an MVC out, and then we have to kind of go on to the next thing. So our error tracking MVCs had a little unused and a little unloved for about 6 months. But a few milestones ago, we started revisiting error tracking as a team. And our goal in revisiting it was to make our error tracking offering robust enough so that users can investigate and take action on errors from within GitLab. But how do we do that? We had a lot of ideas and hunches and suspicions, but nothing that had been validated in any way by users in terms of what they wanted to see next and what would best fit into their workflow. And around the time we started revisiting error tracking, the new problem validation process was being introduced. And we decided to give that new process a try as we wanted to figure out how to best improve error tracking within GitLab. And the outline process for problem validation, which maybe you all know, I'm not sure how many people have given it a try yet, but includes creating an opportunity map, conducting user interviews, and mapping the results of those interviews to consolidate our insights. And after this work was completed, the plan was to create issues to improve error tracking and to base those plans on what we discovered during our research. And to be honest, this was a big change in process for us as a team. In past, we were more likely to ship something, whatever it was, or get feedback and approve upon it, like in the spirit of iteration. But here we're kind of turning everything on its head, and we're trying to check in with users before building and shipping something. And for us as a team, this was a big shift. So in this problem validation phase, we focused on better understanding the workflow for error tracking so we could figure out how to fit into it. When do users look at errors? What steps do they take? When do they investigate errors? What's the flow for remediating them? And the stickies that you're seeing in the affinity map are users' responses to these questions. And we took these real users' responses and turned them into issues and use these insights to inform our next steps and our designs. So based on this research, we've made a number of improvements to error tracking in GitLab during 12.6. So these things are already out, including introducing a search to our error list view, creating an error detail page, and allowing users to create issues from errors. And we're really excited about these changes because they help users to more easily investigate and resolve errors from within GitLab. So users can stay in GitLab as they dig into errors and deploy the code to fix them, which means less context switching. They no longer have to go back and forth between Sentry and GitLab to do this work. So what does this look like? So here you're seeing much of the original list view for errors, but we've added in a search bar, recent search up here in the top, and sort options. We also cleaned up the way the list displays as we realized that some of the information coming from the Sentry API was being consolidated and displayed in ways we didn't originally expect. Essentially, we had originally designed a whole row in this table for error descriptions. But when we started seeing more live instances of this list in action, we realized that the description was being automatically appended to the title by the API. So all our early kind of versions of this table had a lot of empty states where this description should have been. But this is now fixed, so that's great. You'll also notice that we added the ability to act on errors from the list view. So users can easily ignore or resolve errors directly from the list view. And pagination for the list is also coming soon, so that's very exciting because we can actually display more of the errors than we could originally. And this is the second big improvement we introduced, which is the error detail screen. So clicking on any item in that first list view will now show you the details of the error. And this whole screen is totally new for us. Here users can see many of the details that they originally had to go to Sentry to see, including first seen, last seen information, full stack trace for the errors, so they can really dig into what happened and why. And some action buttons so they can, for example, create a GitLab issue to further investigate the error they're seeing if as needed. And having this page in GitLab is a huge step forward in making our error tracking offering more useful. So we're also really excited about this. And then after we put together these original designs, we also went through a solution validation process, which helped us to refine our designs and identify new opportunities and kind of validate our approach. And one of the things we quickly validated as part of this research is the sorts of filtering that we had been planning. For our error list, we were debating a number of filters like filter by release, commit, and MR. But based on this research, we deprioritized several of these options as we found that the filters that we had been planning on introducing weren't actually the ones that were most important to users. So it was really good that we were able to get that information from users and not proceed with something that they didn't necessarily want. So based on this solution validation research, we're currently working on a number of additional improvements to error tracking, including surfacing the language, framework, and priority of an error, allowing users to ignore and resolve errors from GitLab, and that's both in the list and in the detail view, and linking to the file history from the error detail page. So, and what you're seeing now is the links to the file history over here in the stack trace, along with the highlighted error level and language, and in particular, the highlighting of the error level and the language those were things that were directly requested by users in our solution validation research. So in terms of this UX showcase platform, we wanted to share these improvements in particular because this is a big shift in process for Monitor. So as mentioned, we're really trying to shift from a place of kind of act first and get feedback later to one where we get feedback first and allow those insights to inform our plans and our designs. And this feels like a bit of a sea change for us as a team. And we're really embracing the problem and solution validation processes, and it's been super helpful for us. And we're going to continue to improve our error tracking offering through insights gained from research. And we're anticipating that error tracking will move from minimal to viable by the end of 12.7, which is very exciting. So in just a few milestones, we completed the problem and solution validation, as well as making like a great number of improvements to error tracking. And we're feeling really excited about that as a team, and we're feeling excited also to apply this process to our next team effort. So that's all I had. Thank you.